Okay. So what we did at the beginning of class here and what we did last week is we were making entire radicals, we were making mixed radicals, which is when you have a number on the outside. Now we're going to reverse the process and make entire radicals, which means we're putting everything under the square root or the cube root or whatever we're talking about. Okay? The index number is key here. What's the index number if there's no index number written? 2. The index number tells you how many of the outside numbers you need to put inside. So for example, the index number here is 2. That means if I'm going to put the 3 inside, I'm putting 2 3s. Okay? Like 3 times 3. Okay? Which is 9. Okay? And then 9 times 14 is root 126. Okay, so the index number tells you. You can either write it out like 3 times 3, or you could write it like this. 3 to the power of 2, okay, which is the same thing. So for these 3 here, how many 2's am I putting inside? 2 of them. So I'm going to get 2 times the 5 that's in there, which is root 20. Next one, I'm putting 2 4's in. So I can write it as 4 squared times 7, which is 16 times 7, which is 112. What's the last one? No, but how many 10's are you putting inside the square root? 2. That's what you're doing. 10 times 10 is 100 times 6 is 600. So root 600 is the same as 10 root 6. It's just the reverse of what we've been doing. What if you have a fraction? Don't do a decimal. You put 2 fractions in this case. So we have 3 over 2 times 3 over 2 times 8, and it's all under the square root sign. How do you multiply fractions? Okay, so what is the 8 as a fraction? 8 over 1. Okay, now how do you multiply fractions? Straight across, so top times top times top. 3 times 3 is 9. 9 times 8 is 72. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 1 is 4. Can you simplify that? Probably. Good answer. 72 divided by 4 is 18. So it's the square root of 18. All right, you can do it with decimals if they give you a decimal. So how many decimals am I putting in? 2. So it's 0.4 times 0.4 times 50. And if you multiply that out, you get 8. Okay, what if you have a negative? Look at the index sign. So can you put a negative inside? Okay, if the index sign is even, you have to leave the negative on the outside. I can put the 5 in, so I'm going to rewrite this as the negative 5 times 7, which is negative root 175. Nope, you have to leave the negative on the outside. Don't put the negative in at all. Okay, is that okay? All right, 1 and 2 then, please. All right. So the only difference what we're going to do now and what we just did 10 minutes ago is the index numbers changed. So if I have an index number of 3, how many 1/2s do I put inside? Smartest group ever. You just got to remember how to multiply fractions. How do you multiply fractions? Because we're putting in a 1/2. How do you multiply fractions? Just go right across the tops. 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. And so 1/8 times 80 is the same as 80 over 8, which is, hello? 10. So it's just the cube root of 10. It's the exact same stuff. Okay? Index number tells you. Here's the only difference. And so I'm only going to do one of them. I'll do 2 of them, actually. B and D. So we have a negative on the outside. If you have a negative on the outside, it is up to you. If the index number is odd, you can put the negative inside if you want. Okay? But you can leave it on the outside. If the index number is even, you have to what? You have to leave the negative on the outside. So for B, you could go put in all 3 of the -4s. And that'll give you -448 cube rooted. Or you could leave the negative on the outside and write negative cube root. I don't really care. Okay. Just be aware that if it's an odd index number, you can either put it inside or leave it outside. If it is even, you need to leave this negative on the outside. Okay, so D, you would write negative, and I'd put in 3 4s, or 4 3s, sorry, times the 2 to get negative 4th root of 162. That's the only answer. Whereas B has 2 different answers. Okay? Good. All right, 3 to 5, please. At the bottom of page, what page is this? Bottom page 24. If you do it with variables, it is the exact same method. So index number tells you how many of each thing to put in. So let's do B. What's my index number? 2. This is a squared. So I'm putting in 2 a squareds, and then there's already an a there. Now we're gonna get to this, I think, we'll get to it probably later today. What do you do when you're multiplying? What do you do with the exponents if the bases are the same? You add them together. 2 plus 2, what's the exponent here? 1. So what's the answer? 5. So it's 8 to the 5, 8 to the 5th. Square root of 8 to the 5th. Same with the next one. I'm putting in 2x to the 5s. There's a y there and an x, sorry. So what's my answer? X to the 11 and a y. And then we can combine it with numbers. 3xy cubed, cube root of 2z to the 4. So I'm putting in 3 3s. I'm putting in 3 x's. and I'm putting in 3y cubes. I'm running out of room here. And there's a 2 and a z to the 4. No, you can do 3xy cubed all cubed or yeah. I don't really care. Like this is the intermediate part, so that doesn't matter to me. So 3 times 3 times 3 is 9, or sorry, is 27, times 2 is 54. And I got 3x's there, so that's x cubed. What's my y? Y to the power of 9, right? Because you're adding the 3's together. And there's just a z4 hanging out there. And that's it. Number 9, please. And then we'll move on to the next lesson. This will be a short lesson. Only a couple things that I want to do. All right, so one of the questions you will see on your test or quiz will be to order a set of numbers. Okay? We want to go from largest to smallest, greatest to least. So to do this, put everything, make it an entire radical. All right? So put everything under the square root sign, and then you just look at the number that's the biggest. So for the first one, I've got to put 2 3's underneath. So it's going to be 3 times 5, which is 45. What's the second one become? 75. 3 is already an entire radical, so you don't do anything with that. 4 becomes 32. And the last one, I put 2 8's, which is 64, times 2 is 128. Okay, so now they're all under the same radical sign. They're all square roots. So you just look at the largest number. Which one is the highest? Root 128. Whoa. Root 128. Next one is root 75. Root 45. Root 32. Root 15. So if you get asked to order them, make them all entire radicals, and then you only have to just look at the numbers inside. Whatever has the highest number is the largest, whatever has the smallest number is the smallest. That's it. Okay? I will ask you a question like that. Okay. On the test or the quiz, I haven't decided yet. I don't know yet. I don't want to rush to get through, because we're doing 2 chapters, like for that first test. Sorry? Well, yeah, I guess technically we are rushing just to 22 days to do a course. We are rushing. That is true. Okay. All right. So everybody remember the Pythagorean Theorem? Okay. Well, let's do a quick review. If you have a right angle triangle, it's a squared plus b squared equals c squared. There's only one letter that matters that you have to get correct. What is it? What is c? Yeah, which is the hypotenuse. A and B don't matter. Okay, which side you put A and B, but C has to be the hypotenuse across from the right angle, or the longest side, or whatever you want to do. So if I want to figure out the length of this line, we will make a triangle. We're not going to do the distance formula one. So count the squares to get the length here. So the up here is 1, 2, 3 squares. That's 3. This length is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's right. So this will be, I'll just call this A. This will be B. It doesn't really matter. There's my C. So if we use the formula, A squared plus B squared equals C squared. A squared is 9. B is 3. Nine squared is 81 plus 3 squared, which is 9, gives me 90. 90 equals C squared. Does everybody agree with that? Okay, I'm not trying to solve for C squared though. I want C. So what do? You square root both sides. So C is equal to root 90. Now, but they want us to write it in mixed radical, which is the exact value, and we'll do the decimal. So let's do the decimal first. What's the square root of 90? I don't even know. 9.486, so 9.49. All right, so does everybody understand what this little wavy equal sign means? Yeah, approximately. All right, and the reason I do that is because we're rounding off at some point. Square root 90? Is that? Yeah. Okay, 9.49. Now, if I want the exact value, I have to write it as a radical. Okay, so that means we have to simplify it. So what multiplies to 90? 10 and 9. And 9 is 3 and 3. So I can pull out A. We'll zoom right in there. Pull out a 3. So I get 3 root 10. This is the exact value. And the 9.49 is you've rounded off. Okay? That's why I do the wavy equal sign. Okay, so it's an approximate value. I will probably ask for both. So you get half mark for this, half mark for that. Okay, is there any questions about that? All right, we got one more question to do from this lesson, and then we're done this lesson. So flip the page, please. All right. So now we've got back-to-back right angle triangles stuck together. We got to figure out the length of AB. So I want to know this side here. That's what they're asking me. Yes, you find the middle part first. So we're going to break it into two triangles. First bit is this. And I want to know that. Does everybody see? Does that make sense to everybody? I'll even outline it in red. So that triangle is what I drew over there. So then I use Pythagorean Theorem because it's a right angle triangle. A squared plus 8 squared is equal to 12 squared. Twelve squared is 144. Subtract off the 8 squared, which is 64. Is everybody good with that? Please speak up if you don't know what I did there. We're good? Okay. 144 minus 64 is 80. Is that right? Okay, a squared is 80. I'm gonna leave it as a squared. I mean, you could write it as a is equal to root 80 if you wanted. But because this is an intermediate step, I'm just gonna leave it, okay? Because then I'm going to take the other triangle, this one, I'll write it down here. 6. This height here is, well, I'll just write it as root 80. And then this is what I'm trying to find. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So now it's just a squared plus b squared again. A squared. 6 squared. If you square a square root, what do you get? Like if I square root 80, what do I get? You get just 80. Okay. So I get 36 plus 80 is equal to c squared. So c squared is equal to 116. What do I do? What's c equal to? Approximately 10.77. Okay, that's the rounding off. If I ask for the exact value, which I will, go, Mr. Battle. All right, so break up the 116, 4 and 29. 29 doesn't break up, so it's 2 root 29. Okay, it's the exact same stuff we've been doing. They just throw in this wrinkle of, oh, use the Pythagorean theorem, and then take your answer and simplify it into 2 different forms. That's all they're saying. Okay? Are we all right? 2 questions, number 1 and number 6. That's it. Please.